July 9th, 1755. The air was thick, heavy, unmoving. Somewhere along the banks of the Monongahela River, an army marched with confidence. They wore red coats, polished muskets rested on their shoulders, drums echoed through the trees. They believed they were invincible. Within hours, that belief would die in the forest. More than 1,300 British soldiers had entered the wilderness of North America. By sunset, nearly 1,000 would be dead or wounded. Not in open battle, not in neat European lines, but in chaos, in confusion, in terror. And at the center of it all stood a man who believed discipline could conquer anything, General Edward Braddock, and riding beside him, a young, unknown officer, George Washington. The forest was about to test them both. The year was 1755. Britain and France were locked in a struggle for control of North America. The Ohio Valley was the prize, a land of rivers, trade routes, and strategic power. The French had built forts. They had allied with native tribes. They understood the terrain. The British? They believed numbers and discipline were enough. When General Edward Braddock arrived in Virginia, he brought with him the full weight of the British Empire. He was a veteran of European wars. He understood structured battlefields, lines, commands, precision. What he did not understand was the American wilderness. Braddock dismissed colonial warnings. He ignored native scouting advice. To him, war had rules, and he intended to follow them. March in formation, engage directly, crush the enemy. But the forest did not follow rules. The expedition moved slowly. Cannons had to be dragged through mud. Trees were cut to carve roads. Supplies stretched thin. The soldiers sweated under the summer heat. Weeks passed. The forest watched. Somewhere beyond the trees, French troops and native warriors tracked every movement. They counted the soldiers. They studied their pace. They waited. Braddock grew impatient. He divided his forces, leaving slower units behind. He wanted speed. He wanted glory. He wanted to strike Fort Duquesne before the French could react. But the French were already reacting, and they were not alone. Morning, July 9th, the British column crossed the Monongahela River. The water shimmered under sunlight. It seemed peaceful, too peaceful. Then a single gunshot cracked through the trees. Silence shattered. Another shot, then another. Within seconds, the forest exploded. Smoke poured from behind trees. Bullets tore through red coats. British officers fell first. The soldiers tried to form lines. They tried to follow commands, but they could not see their enemy. The attackers were hidden. They moved between trees. They struck and vanished. Panic spread. Men fired blindly into smoke. Drums stopped beating. Orders were drowned by screams. European discipline collapsed in the American forest. General Braddock attempted to restore order. He rode into the chaos, shouting commands, trying to reform lines. But the battlefield did not exist. There were no clear sides, only confusion. Officers became targets. Native warriors focused their fire on leaders. One by one, command structure crumbled. Then it happened. Braddock was hit. A musket ball tore into him. The the general fell from his horse, and with him fell the illusion of control. The army began to break. What had entered as a proud column was now a fleeing mass. Nearly 900 men would be killed or wounded. It was a slaughter, and it lasted barely 3 hours. Amid the chaos, one figure kept riding: George Washington. Only 25 years old, he carried orders, he rallied troops, he tried to prevent total destruction. 2 horses were shot beneath him, 4 bullets pierced his coat, but he was not hit. Later, some would call it luck, others would call it fate. Washington witnessed everything: the panic, the arrogance, the failure. He learned something that day. European tactics did not work in American forests. Adaptation was survival. Years later, he would remember that lesson, and he would use it. The British retreated. They buried Braddock in the road they had cut through the forest, his body placed beneath the path so that marching troops would erase the grave. A general of the British Empire, hidden in the wilderness he failed to understand. The French victory was stunning, but its impact was deeper than numbers. Colonial soldiers had seen British regulars panic. They had seen officers fall. They had seen the empire bleed. The myth of invincibility was gone, and in the mind of a young officer named Washington, a new understanding was born. If the British could fall here, they could fall again. July 9th, 1755. The forest did not just defeat an army, it shattered an illusion. Braddock believed discipline conquered all, but the land demanded adaptation. The empire entered in perfect lines. It left in broken silence. And somewhere in the smoke and gunfire, the seeds of another revolution were quietly planted, because 20 years later, the lessons of that forest would return, not against France, but against Britain itself. The trees remembered, and history changed.